How's it going, guys? Jace here, and today, if you didn't already tell from the title, is frame data day. Today, we're going to talk about some frame data. So, um, if you have come from Street Fighter, or a game that utilizes frame data heavily, this video may not pertain to you, but if you've never played a fighting game before, or you come from the mobile game, you're starting to play Blue versus, or even if you've played a fighting game before, but that fighting game didn't really have frame data be super prevalent in the game, like Dragon Ball Fighters, a little bit of BB Tag, but frame data is much more important in this game, similar to Street Fighter. So I'm going to give you the why you should learn frame data and how to use it exactly. What are the applications for it, and what do you want to be doing? So why should you learn frame data in this game? First of all, there's only 11 characters in the game, so it makes the effort much more easy because there's not 40 characters, 30, 20, only 11 currently. So if you get on the train now, you can learn all the character frame data and what you need to know, and then as the DLC piles up, you'll be good to go. So, with that being said, you don't have to know everything, and there's 11 characters. Next is punishments. How to punish moves correctly. If you don't know the frame data, you're kind of guessing. Somewhat. Of course, some moves look very, very punishable, but you may have you may be able to punish moves that you're not aware of. For example, we are on Grand's frame data. As you can see here, 214L. 214L is -6. Now, I know a lot of people may think it's safe, or they can't punish it, and that is true. Some characters can punish it. But let's use the example of Grand versus Grand. As you see here, Grand's fastest normal, his 5L, or his close 5L, is 5 frame startup, which means if he is close enough, he can punish it. But if you say a character like Fairy, you see her close L is 6 frames, so she could punish it too, but her 5L is 8 frames, so she can't punish it from a certain range, only if Grand's really close to her. So that's one example of how character differentiates depending on how you can punish people. So that is just one move that people may not think is punishable, but it is, because it is -6. So just looking at the frame data of the moves, without even loading up the game, you can find punishes that you may not be aware of. So that is very important to know. So going through your characters, or going through all the characters you play against, and maybe thinking like, is this punishable? I know what the move is. I know what the input is. Let me check the frame data. While I'm sitting out here in the doctor's office just chilling, you can see how to punish things properly without even loading the game. Next is to know when it's your turn. So going back to Grant here, right? He has a lot of plus frame normals. He has close light, far light, or far light is negative. Close light, close medium. His 2M is also plus, and his 2L is also plus. He's the only character in the game that has this combination of these 4, so it's very good. But let's take Fairy for example. Fairy 5L is -7. So her doing this into this, the 5L, the small whip, that is a chance to take your turn. So if you see somebody just constantly doing that to you, you can challenge them for it. Another example is Lancelot. Lancelot, Rekka, if I scroll down here, it's 214. His Rekka's, his 214L is -3. His second part of it is -4. And some Lancelot players might take advantage of this if you're not sure how to punish it or interrupt them properly. They might do, standard auto combo, 214L, and then press 5L again to challenge you. So if you're not aware, they can get the turn back, of course. So, as you can see, it's -3. So after you see him do the Rekka, you can mash your fastest normal, which is probably going to be 5L or 2L, depending on your character. So you can take your turn back and not let Lancelot just bully you over and over again because you don't know the frame data. Yeah, that's just a couple reasons why you want to learn frame data in this game. And like I said, you don't have to know everything. And there's only 11 characters, so let's talk about what you should know. What things you should know for frame data. First things first is your fastest normal. You should obviously know what your fastest normal is. The fastest normal in the game is 5 frames. Some characters have 5 frames, some characters don't. Some characters have 5 frames on a specific normal. For example, let's use Catalina. Catalina's close light is 5 frames, but her far L is 6 frames and her 2L is 6 frames. Unlike Gran, where Gran's close L is 5 frames and his 2L is also, or excuse me, his 5L is also 5 frames. There's just one differentiate. They all differentiate. They vary quite a lot in frame data. There's some pretty regular stuff. For example, most of the characters 5Ls on block. They're usually plus. Some characters aren't, like Fairy. Fairy does have a 0 frame or a 0 on Vantage for her close L. So you definitely have to check each character and see what their fast normal is. And going back to the Gran situation, like I said before, Gran obviously could take advantage of Fairy with her whip, her 5L being only 8 frame startup. So he gets to use his Rekka, his 214L, the slice, and pressure a lot more against her compared to somebody like Gran himself or even Catalina. Catalina can also punish it because her 5L is 6 frames. So knowing what the fastest normal is very important for your character and other characters as well, because you can possibly take advantage of certain situations because of their lack of the 5 frame normal or other situations like that. Next is you want to know what your plus frames are and your character's plus frames or other characters' plus frames. So I played Gran, so we're going to go back to Gran. I know 4 of my normals are plus, right? Close L, close medium, 2L, and 2M. They're all plus. That's good to know. But Catalina doesn't have that. Catalina has her close L and her close M are plus, but her 2L, her 2L is also plus, but her 2M is not. Her 2M is -5, which is punishable if I don't cancel it into a fireball. So that's something I have to be aware of if I play Catalina. And as time progresses, once you play characters more and more and more, you're going to start realizing some habits from players. So for example, if they're just doing Catalina 2M, 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 that means you can interrupt it and possibly punish it from that range. Going back to Fairy, one thing that people ought to do, like to do, is 5H into the whip, right? Into the 236L or 236M. Now, as you see here, these moves have a lot of startup. So one simple thing you can do, if you see them do 5L and they're pretty close range, 5L to 214, 236L or 236M, you can roll through after you get put in block stun by the normal, and they do the whip or they do the pull. You can roll through it, and because it is -8, you can punish them with your medium attack. Usually your 5M will work fine into a special move. So that's one simple example you could use just by knowing the frame data. You can see how long the startup is. And just for example, for 5H, right? 5H is -14. So that's already negative, and they're canceling it into something that's 21 frame startup, 32 frame startup, even 18 frame startup is still too slow to be put as a real block string. So that is very important to know because you can easily punish her for that. If you weren't aware of the frame data, you would not know that. And the last example I want to put is frame data is not set in stone. One perfect example, I'm going to have to pull the game up for this one. Boop, right here. So, this move, right? This move is -10 on block. It is very negative. But the thing with this move is I need to put him on initial. Oops. After initial hit. So like we said before, this is -10 on block. This is not safe. But if I do something like this, I can make it safe if I can set it up properly. Oh wait, I need a block. My bad. You see I was safe there? Even though he blocked it and I was very close. Frame data isn't exactly set in stone because there is such things called meaties and setups and other good stuff like that. Even though this move is -10, because I knocked him down and I was already in startup, he got hit at the very, very end of my recovery. So he's taking all the block stun of the big boots, and I'm having none of the recovery, which kind of shifts the frame data in my favor to be plus. I'll show you again without him pressing a move what it looks like. I guess I have to block all actually, just so he can. So, example, see, negative. I am in the red, which means my opponent is in frame advantage. Now I am yellow for some reason. You see how it works? Oh, that was a bad example. Let me do it again. Bad example again. I'll just time it so I can. See, now I'm blue. Depending on the timing I use for it will determine whether I'm plus or not. And same thing if I'm far away. If I do it far away, I can also be plus. Or I can be neutral. So it depends on the spacing. So frame data is not set in stone. There's going to be setups and stuff like that to mix you up to think it's negative because you see the big boot, right? I can punish it. But because of how the media frames are, I am actually plus. So that's just a few examples for frame data and what to know. Obviously, know your fastest normal, know what's plus on block. Also, you want to be aware of course, of what is very negative as well. So going back to the frame data, as you can see, we talked about 214M, 214M being negative 10. Where is Gran? Gran, negative 10. Same thing for DPs. His DPs are also very negative. Negative 17, negative 26, negative 26. You want to know those numbers too. Those really big negative numbers. Because that means you'll be able to punish them with something like your 5H. A lot of the characters 5H are usually 9 to 10 frame startup. Some characters are a little bit longer. But most of them are 10 frames. 10 frames, 12 frames, 13, 16, 11, 13. Again, 9. I think this is 10. 19. Oh, his is a lot. But yeah, it's also important because you know how to get the fattest punish on certain characters. And what characters you can just punish just barely. So whether you get a 5H or 5L, you want to know what's negative, what's not. Especially those really big numbers. That's also very important to know. But that's it for me. Hopefully I taught you a little bit of frame data stuff. It's pretty basic. Like I said before, it was mainly for people that didn't really have to utilize frame data in their last fighting game, or if they're new to fighting games in general, why knowing frame data is important. And like I stressed before, only 11 characters, so you can, if you really want to know all the frame data, you can, because it's pretty manageable. There's not that many characters so far, so don't let the characters build up and not know your frame data. But yeah, that's it for me. Hopefully you guys learned something today, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.